Hi, I'm Clint Arthur, and it's my privilege to be competing for the Glazer Kennedy Marketer of the Year in the B2B category. This is $38,000 in cash. And what I'm going to talk to you today is about how I got $38,000 in cash out of a brand new market in just the past 18 months. And how you can do that too with your B2B or E2B, entrepreneur to business, because this is what it's all about, folks. And I'm here to thank Glazer Kennedy for helping me to make this happen, and to share some of what I've learned in my use of the magnetic marketing course, and listening to Dan Kennedy and his disciple James Malinchak, and how this all happened. Now, before I start getting into the numbers, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. And I'd like to start by asking you a question, and that is, where were you on December 31st, 1999? Were you out partying, getting ready for the new millennium? Well, a lot of people were. Personally, I was driving a taxi that night in Los Angeles, California. And although I was hanging out with literally hundreds of people in the back of my car, I felt completely alone. And although I made more money that night than I would normally make in an entire week of driving a taxi, I felt like the biggest loser. And when I went home to my little tiny boat in Marina del Rey, where I was living, because that was the cheapest way I could afford to live in Los Angeles, I crawled into bed under all my heaviest down comforters and wearing all my heaviest coats and clothes because it was freezing on the boat. And I crawled into bed with my favorite book, and that book was Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt, who was my high school creative writing teacher, and he had recently won the Pulitzer Prize. And as I was laying there reading my book by the light of a flashlight, I got distracted by my breath because it was condensing in the night air. And it made me think back on my journey. After graduating from Stuyvesant, I went on to graduate from the Wharton Business School. Same school as Donald Trump and all his kids. And after Wharton, I moved out to Los Angeles to pursue my dreams of becoming a filmmaker like my idol, Spike Lee. I wanted to be a movie star and a filmmaker like Spike. And after a decade of banging my head up against the brick wall of the Hollywood dream, not only had I been driving a taxi for 5 years of that decade, but there it was, New Year's Eve of the millennium, and I was driving a cab. And as I lay there in bed, I felt like I was in a ditch I was never going to be able to dig myself out of. I didn't know what else I could do. And I started crying because I was terrified that I was never going to be able to come near achieving my potential. And I swore an oath that night to myself that I was going to do everything I could possibly do to change who I was and how I was showing up in my life. And that began a huge personal development, self-help extravaganza that I went on. I mean, I did everything you could possibly do to become a different person. I walked on fire with Tony Robbins. I did Toltec wisdom studies with Don Miguel Ruiz. I did men's power circles. I did everything you could do in self-help. And sure enough, as I began to change on the inside, so did the outer circumstances of my life. I started making money in the gourmet food industry. And then I met an amazing woman and got married. She encouraged me in real estate. I bought a fixer-upper. I rehabbed it. I built an addition on her house. Then I built 4 houses during the real estate boom. I made a bunch of money and I got fat and happy. I actually got to be obese, hitting 236 pounds. And one night I was at a men's self-help circle because, as I said, I believe that self-help is the way. And as an entrepreneur and as a believer in self-help, I'm always pursuing new growth and development in myself as a businessman and as a person. And I think the two are kind of interweaved and interlinked. And one night I was sitting at the campfire down by LAX at the beach because they have fire rings there, and we would meet and have campfires. And a man on the other side of the campfire pointed at me through the yellow and orange crackling flames, and he said, "You don't know it yet, but you're already dead." And I thought to myself, what the heck does this guy mean? I'm already dead. I'm already dead. What does that mean, I'm already dead? I didn't know, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Man, for months, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I'd be mumbling, "I'm already dead, I'm already dead." What does that mean? Came to be New Year's Day on 2009. I woke up, poured myself a mimosa, got out a yellow legal pad and a pen to write down my list of goals for the year, as I would do every year on New Year's Day. And that year, inspired by what the guy said at the campfire, I asked myself an important question. What would you want to do this year if this was going to be the last year of your life? And the first thing I said was, I want to get healthy. I could barely bend over to tie my shoes. I said, I want to lose weight. And I did. That year, I did it without joining a gym, changing my diet, or hiring a trainer. I lost 40 pounds and I've kept it off. That year, I said, man, I haven't written a word since I quit driving a cab and started selling gourmet food. I said, man, I have a book inside me that I'm dying to write. That book was called What They Teach You at the Wharton Business School. I wanted to write down all the most important things I had learned. Well, that year I wrote that book, and I didn't do really anything with it for a couple of years, but a couple of months ago, that book hit number 2 on Amazon.com's bestseller list for entrepreneurship books. So I became a best-selling author because I was living as if I only had a year left to live. And that year, I said to myself, man, it's the recession. My suppliers are squeezing my margins, raising their prices. My customers are all crying that they can't afford my product. I need to start manufacturing my own product so I can vertically integrate and grab those margins and stay alive as a company. And I built a factory that year that I had been terrified to build for 5 years. I had all these uncertainties of costs, and I had never built a factory before. I'd never manufactured product before, but that year I made it happen, and thank God I did, because ever since that factory came online, as you will see later on in this presentation, we've had record month after record month, and that factory has been part of what has helped us to double our sales during the last 2 years, with the help of the magnetic marketing techniques that I've been using. Last but not least, that year, I looked at my marriage, and I love my wife tremendously. And I said, look, I don't want our marriage to go the way of most of the Hollywood relationships. I had been walking around on eggshells, afraid to confront the tough issues of our marriage, but because it was the last year of my life, we were able to get into counseling, turn things around, and we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary a couple months ago. So that's part of what happened in that year. Now, at the end of 2009, I got introduced to James Malinchak, and I started hearing about Dan Kennedy and Bill Glazer and something called magnetic marketing. And I investigated magnetic marketing, and I was very interested in it. I bought the program, and I did just a few things in the program, but what I did, I really focused on, and I really pushed on. And the key things for me were the idea of the delivery of the message using multimedia and multi-step process. Now, of course, I also really focused in on my target market and identified my key target market. And for me, the target market is an executive chef of a mobile 5-diamond resort. If you're not an executive chef of a mobile 5-diamond resort, you're really not my customer for my gourmet food company, which is the 5-Star Butter Company. So I'm going to talk to you today about my case study, which is Chef Stephen Henry of the Palmer House Hilton Hotel. It's the flagship of the Hilton Hotel chain, the #1 hotel in Chicago. And I really pursued Chef Stephen Henry using 9 steps in this multimedia, multi-step marketing process influenced by the Glazer-Kennedy magnetic marketing system. And the first thing I do in my process is I create local celebrity for myself in the market by booking myself onto a news program in the market. So in this case, I booked myself onto ABC News in Chicago. I did a food demonstration using my butter, and I flew into Chicago a day early, and when I arrived at the hotel, I started calling up chefs. And I called up a number of them. I think I called up 7. And this is what I would say, either to them in person or on their message machine. Hello, chef. It's Clint Arthur. I'm the president of 5 Star Butter Company. I'm in Chicago today because I'm going to be appearing on ABC News tomorrow morning here in Chicago, doing a demonstration of our best butter on earth. And I was wondering if you would like me to stop by your kitchen when I'm done at the television studio. And of the 7 calls I made, 6 appointments were set for the next day. And one of them was with Chef Stephen Henry. And then the next step was I did my TV appearance, and then I went to the kitchens, and I did my in-person demonstration, step 2. After that, I took a photograph of myself with the chef in his office with all his awards, and I followed up with a thank you email. Thank you for the meeting. Here's the picture of us. It was great to meet you. Then he had mentioned to me that he was having a pet charity event at his hotel. I donated product for that event. I bought a ticket and I went and I attended that event a few months later in Chicago in November. And it was a beautiful, beautiful event and beautiful weather. Had a great time there. Then after that, I sent him a custom greeting card with a photograph that I took of him at the event receiving a medal. And on the front of the greeting card, I put in our hero. I called him our hero, and he is. He's exactly the kind of chef that we want, exactly the kind of client we want, and I let him know it. I still didn't have an order from him, so I did a second in-person meeting with him, including a second appearance on television there. And after that one, this is my favorite technique. After that appearance in his kitchen, I shot a custom YouTube video in which I offered him his choice of free premiums. I said, Chef, great meeting you. If you buy 5 cases this month, I'll be happy to give you either a free case for your kitchen, or I'll send out 5 gift packs with our special souvenir cooler to 5 of your friends for Christmas. And blammo, that was a winner. I started getting orders from him in August, September, and I also, one more thing I did for him. I also gave him an opportunity to sample the butter live in a restaurant run by one of our clients. He told me he was going to Vegas for his anniversary, and I said, you should go to our client, Oriole. The dinner is on me. Happy anniversary. Then I started getting orders. I gave him better bait, as Dan Kennedy talks about, and it worked. And there was also some reciprocity there. So then I got orders from him, and he sent me an email saying, hey, I want to talk to you about how great the butter's doing in our program. And I got that email from him when I was in Europe on vacation with my wife. So I sent him back a photo via text. Text is another great modality. And what happens is I've now used 9 different modalities to contact this guy. I'm completely in his life. Unlike all the other schmoes selling widgets or butter, I am participating in his life in 9 different modalities. And I sent him this text photo of me and my wife in front of a huge palace in Europe, creating more mystique and charisma and really separating myself out from the other guys selling butter. And it's resulted in, altogether, the sales in Chicago have totaled up to almost $39,000. And that's in little over a year. This item will continue to sell over and over and over for years to come. Here's the chart of my annual sales. Using these multimodalities and the magnetic marketing techniques, in just 2 years, I have doubled the sales of my company from $463,000 to $862,000. I've also released a TV publicity training program for other entrepreneurs and business owners. That's a whole new thing. Celebrity brings all kinds of opportunities with it. And by learning how to create celebrity for myself and creating a training program for others, I've added an additional almost $35,000 of revenue in just the first 6 months of introducing this product to other entrepreneurs. Thank you, Dan Kennedy. Thank you, Bill Glazer. Thank you, Magnetic Marketing. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're not using celebrity and multiple modalities of sales communication, then shame on you.